Good afternoon and welcome to CJLO 1690 AM. My name is Michael Brody. I'm joined today by Shane Simmons. Welcome to episode 53 of Cinema Smackdown.
I'm sure our numbering will line up accordingly since I started labeling my episodes A, B, and C until they meet up. That's my plan.
And then you're going to go, what, AA, BB, CC?
No, then it will follow your numbering. But you count just because we took over.
Just to be clear, nothing you're doing is canon.
Oh, thank God. We can ignore the last 3 episodes?
Rely completely
Not of this, of Star Wars.
on my Mixcloud list.
Okay.
Go look up Mr. Brody on Mixcloud, and you will find all 52 and later today 53 episodes of Cinema Smackdown. If you want to catch up and see what sort of madness we've been up to in the last couple of months and years.
Now, we disavowed the YouTube channel, which is all about the horrible, incriminating things we talk about during the commercial breaks.
Indeed. All right, so back to our topic, our ongoing topic. This is part 2 of the most underrated films of the decade. Last week, we got all the way through 2010, and we rushed through 2011 just to feel like we had done 2 years' worth, when I thought we might get through 5. Boy, was I wrong.
Well, as we've pointed out, I think the entire decade gave us diminishing returns as it went along.
I don't have the same list as you. The only year that I don't have many films for is 2014.
Not really?
Most other years I've got 7 to 12 movies per year, many of which I can just say by title, but some of which really need to be discussed. So today we begin with 2012. 2012 begins... I did this last week, I guess I'll try it again this week. I'm going to start with what I think is the most underrated movie of that year, and then mention other things. I guess I could have done it backwards, but forget it. I'm just going to go this way. The most underrated movie of 2012 is a film called No One Lives.
Okay, I'll go with that.
Here is the premise of No One Lives. An innocent couple traveling cross-country run afoul of a family of ruthless highway criminals, but things are not at all what they seem. That is the vaguest possible way of describing this movie, which most people will think is a horror film, and is definitely a horror film.
No, it's a romance, as far as I'm concerned.
It is definitely a romance as well. As far as I'm concerned, this movie is a masterclass on playing with audience expectations. I had preconceived notions about 10 minutes into this movie about what I was going to watch, and they were quickly reversed, and then they were quickly reversed again. It was maybe the best movie I have ever seen on the level of, wait, who am I supposed to be rooting for here? Because figuring out who your protagonist is and figuring out who you're supposed to side with is kind of a key element of movies. Storytelling in general, and this is one of the ones where it really plays with your expectations.
Well, there's a romantic anti-hero, shall we say.
I'll say. Luke Evans shines in a way he never had before and never will again.
Oh, come on, he made those Hobbit movies.
Playing, let's call him a man with no name.
Although my very quick summary of this film when I tell people about it is the moral of the story is never kidnap Jason Voorhees' girlfriend.
Yeah, that makes it sound like that makes the movie sound like the full-blown exploitation slasher movie. Well, that it is. This movie is blood-soaked beyond belief, but it is also so clever. It is an extreme horror film in many ways, but it is also a very, very smart thriller about a different kind of anti-hero. And I couldn't recommend it more. It is in its own way a perfect movie. That is my impression of it. And
you could do a double feature, this and last week's Red, White, and Blue.
I don't consider this movie to be a downer.
Okay, not a downer, but there's thematic similarities at times.
Yeah, okay. You're not wrong. There's one character in Red, White, and Blue who fits this universe.
Yeah.
And at any rate, last thoughts. No One Lives is directed by Ryuhei Kitamura, and he generally makes blood-soaked movies. You'll see another one of his films pop up a couple of years down the road in the best of last year, I think.
Right.
And he does an astonishingly good job of directing this film.
Yeah, we've discussed Downrange before, but he has a long career in Japan before coming to the States, and I think he hasn't been back to Japan to make anything in quite a while.
No, he's fully committed to directing movies in his broken English. He's very delightful. I've seen him in interviews. He speaks quite well, but there's those little moments.
Gore is a universal language.
At any rate, that is No One Lives, my favorite movie of 2012. Also, what I consider to be the most underrated, as I have essentially never seen it on anybody's list of any kind. I can't get over that. So for myself, that's my favorite. Shane, do you have something to jump into on your end?
Yeah, I have a few candidates. I don't know if I've picked a specific favorite, but
Well, that was your only job, so you're fired.
yeah. Well, I think one of my go-tos might be the little-known and little appreciated crime film "Killing Them Softly."
Yep, that's definitely up here for me as well. Let me read the quick synopsis of it, of one sentence. 3 dumb criminals who think they're smart stick up a mob-protected card game, causing the local criminal economy to collapse. Because of this, the mob has to hire hitman Jackie Cogan to track these guys down and restore order. I think that's not a terrible... It's not a terrible...
Not terrible.
summary.
I think it
Don't criticize the summary I wrote it.
no, it makes it it makes it sound lighter than it is. Like when you hear dumb criminals, you think, oh, it's going to be a bit of a comedy farce,
I have to
and
say,
it's not
though,
that.
There's no better... that one, I found those lines somewhere many years ago. 3 dumb criminals who think they're smart is fully accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, it kind of sounds humorous. It is not.
Right.
But those guys, they're convinced they're geniuses, and they are morons.
Yeah. And, Brad Pitt is hired to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
And he is, he's at his most ruthless in this, I'd say.
Yeah, this is, Brad Pitt is arguably the lead, although we don't see him for quite a while in the film. The film, for a little while, stars Scoot McNairy and Ben Mendelsohn, both of whom have gone on to be basically the linchpin of any film they're in after this.
They are both excellent.
They are extraordinary character actors, both of them. They're pretty much my top 1 and 2 character actors. Except for when Ben Mendelsohn shows up as the villain in things like Ready Player One and
Rogue One,
where he's terrible. I won't say the film's terrible, but he is scenery-chewing garbage in that movie.
What else are you going to do in a Star Wars movie?
He's no Richard E. Grant. In the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly jump to a current thing, and we're going to go right back to 2012. But Richard E. Grant, the secret hero of the new Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
Oh man, is he the only person I like.
That is true, and also a tragically underwritten character. But, he
no.
goes with what he can do.
No, he has the greatest 10 seconds into the entire 7 hours of this new trilogy.
That is true. That is true.
All right, back to 2012. We're talking about Killing Them Softly, the Andrew Dominik movie. Andrew Dominik made... Can you do the whole title off the top of your head?
The assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Is that?
I think that's it. There's probably 17 more words.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't roll off the tongue now.
Including a copyright notice, I think, at the end. At any rate, I am a massive fan of Andrew Dominik in general, but especially because of this movie, and the man hasn't made a film since. He has directed 3 episodes of Mindhunter this year, which, while technically perfect, was not a new movie that he wrote.
Right.
So I really look forward to him coming back and making his next film, which I think is on the books.
Yeah. Now much as there are criminal shenanigans going on in this film, and we have a very good right towards the end of his life and career from James Gandolfini. But for me, the entire film hinges on that last scene, which is one of those scenes when it starts up. It's sort of the aftermath of what's happened, but it took me a while to realize, oh, this is the last scene of the film. This conversation between Brad Pitt and Richard Jenkins.
It feels like we've got 25 more minutes left.
It does, but once it hits you, it's like, oh, it's wrapping up right now, and this conversation is fantastic.
It's very special. It's a special movie.
The last line is sticks in my head more than just about any last line I can think of.
I'd ask you what it is to remind me, but I think
I won't spoil it.
At the moment. This movie is so perfectly rooted, even though it's a 2012 movie, it's so perfectly rooted in the cinema of the 70s, and I spent the entire running time of the movie feeling a mood and it really reminded me of something. It took almost until the credits of the movie, because I didn't recognize the writer's name until the credits at the end. It's based on a book by the guy who wrote The Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Right.
And this movie is so close in tone to the 1971 movie starring Robert Mitchum, which I still consider to be one of the cinema highlights of all time, including, especially in the crime genre. I think The Friends of Eddie Coyle is a tiny, perfect little movie, and this is another film in that universe.
They're all, and we'll get to another one of these, but what I would call conversational crime films.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's less about the shooting and the violence and the car chases and the gunplay. It's more about, this is how criminals talk to each other.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So another movie I'd like to go to in 2012. Then this movie was not well liked, not well received, still has a garbage reputation, and I've never understood it. But however, I have recommended it to many people who I thought were very intelligent, who came back and said, I did not understand this film. So that would be Cloud Atlas. Cloud Atlas is the movie that was written and directed by the Wachowskis and Tom Tykwer working as a team. It's the Tom Hanks film with a massive ensemble cast, all of whom play multiple roles in the movie. And it is impossible to summarize this movie in one sentence, but this is the closest thing I could come up with. Here we go. The reincarnation of a soul travels through time in an exploration of how the actions of individual lives impact one another in the past, present, and future. Which sounds like nothing. Or it sounds like the very worst, what is his name? The guy who did Badlands but now only makes films.
Terrence Malick.
Yeah, it's like the worst Malick film. Mm-hmm. And that is really saying something since he doesn't make movies anymore.
Does it have dreamy narration throughout?
He just makes tone poems at this point, which make me angry. But Cloud Atlas is by no means one of those movies. Cloud Atlas has a rock-solid concept, and it's very, very, very well realized, and it is so challenging and so painful.
Yeah, but it's not nearly as philosophical as Speed Racer.
Now, have you seen Cloud Atlas?
No, I have not. No, I still have not tackled it.
You unconscionable monster.
And yet, I've seen Speed Racer, and I've lived to regret it.
So have I. Everything that bookends this movie by the Wachowskis is something that angered me.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. At any rate, this is the movie for me, though, that everyone loves the Wachowskis because they made The Matrix. I was very nonplussed by The Matrix, especially on my first viewing of it.
Oh, really?
I've come to enjoy it. I cannot...
They have gone far based basically on one film.
Yeah, I cannot...
I mean, people who really know them like Bound as well.
I like Bound okay.
Bound
is
minor. It's minor, but it was a fine little debut film, and then The Matrix was huge. And since then, it's been a bit of a train wreck.
All right, we're going to be back in a moment with a little bit more on Cloud Atlas and the rest of 2012. Hopefully we'll get through it by the end of the show. Actually, we did pretty good on getting through No One Lives very quickly. I thought we'd be stuck there forever. It's like, oh good, we're done. It's like 4 minutes, perfect.
I've seen it a couple times now, but I haven't seen it recently enough for it to me to have any fresh thoughts on it that I wanted to.
It's one of those movies that I ultimately just end up rewatching with people when I'm like, how rough a movie can you stand? I watched a rough movie with someone this weekend. I'll tell you about it later. I watched something with Byrne on...
is this the one you said you had something to tell me about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It was quite the experience. It changed my opinion of the film itself, and... Wow, that is so quiet for our second commercial. We'll be back in 20 seconds.
Okay. Well, time enough to talk about 3 other films, then.
But yeah, I have a story to tell you off air.
Okay.
Am I giving this to your voice
recorder? No YouTubers
your
for this one.
Your evidence-gathering voice recorder. And we're back on CGL 1690 AM. Our show is called Cinema Smackdown. I'm Michael Brody. I'm joined by Shane Simmons, and we are counting down the most underrated movies of the decade, year by year, film by film, in excruciating detail. This will be so many more episodes than I originally intended, because we are in episode 2, and we are still in the midst of 2012. And I couldn't be happier, because there are so many movies I love in here. We had just begun talking about Cloud Atlas, but now that I know you haven't seen it, there's not much I can say about it, except... This Cloud Atlas, the Tom Hanks starring Wachowski, Tom Tykwer directed film, is very challenging. It moves in and out of different eras, featuring the same actors playing different parts as they meet over and over again throughout history. The movie has incredible high highs and incredible low lows. There are dark moments in that film, but I was having a conversation with a gentleman once who was described to me by other people as a near genius. And when we talked film, I said, well, of all the things of the last 10 years, have you seen Cloud Atlas? He said, no. I said, I highly recommend it. He went home, he sent me an email the next day. He said, I got through 40 minutes, I don't understand this film. I just couldn't get over it. I was like, you didn't even try.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a genius. Is that right? I think he's a genius in a different field than movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very different mindset depending on... I certainly know plenty of technical, very smart, genius level people who don't, on a creativity level or a thematic level, they are lost.
I will make one last comment about Cloud Atlas. In a recent interview, a brand new interview I listened to last week, Tom Hanks was asked which of his films he thought deserved more attention than initially got, and without a moment of hesitation, he said Cloud Atlas.
And he's wrong because it's Joe versus the Volcano.
No, I would say that Cloud Atlas deserves... I think that Joe vs. the Volcano is a more important, better movie. But I think Cloud Atlas deserves more attention because it has none, and it doesn't have a cult behind it the way Joe does.
Joe has lots of attention, most of it negative.
Not true. There's a cult of Joe vs. the Volcano. At any rate, that's plenty about Cloud Atlas. I highly recommend people seek it out.
And when I see it, I will be seeing it for Tom Tykwer, not the Wachowskis.
No, you'll be seeing it when the movie's over. You'll be saying, "Oh, they made a good movie." The Wachowski parts, because they are separate parts.
I know they will redeem themselves with the next 8 Matrix movies they have.
That's right.
So.
One of them, only one.
Oh, only one of them.
They have separated. Okay. They are no longer joined at the hip.
Oh dear.
They are each producing their own projects now.
So they're no longer conjoined twins after all the surgery.
After the many surgeries. All right, so that's Cloud Atlas, which I love and is very, very much an important movie to me. That's my main 2012 movies. The other ones I have to mention are much quicker comments. What have you got for 2012 that I haven't mentioned?
Let me see here. Oh yes, okay. So another one of my favorites from that year, partially because I'm something of a Frank Langella superfan. I really enjoyed Robot and Frank.
Yeah, it's cute.
It's a cute little science fiction robot buddy film.
Yeah. But
a guy who's increasingly suffering dementia and is given a robot companion to kind of keep him in this world, and they develop a real friendship, but it doesn't break the boundaries of plausible AI. Mm-hmm. So all the stuff that the robot does or is convinced to do fits within the narrow parameters of its programming, to the point where, if you're watching this, you can appreciate it as a character, but it's not, because it doesn't cross that line that so many robot movies does, where
so much robot movies.
Yeah, well, if you want to take
just picking on your tense, that's fine.
Take like every Star Wars film, for example, where the droids are people.
Yeah,
they're in this. It's like, no, the more you think about it, the more you realize, no, this is really just a machine that is obeying its programming precisely. It doesn't violate that rule, and yet it's touching anyway.
I would, unfortunately, I lump into that category of, this is a short film that is extended to nearly 2 hours, and it doesn't...
You can never have enough of Frank Langella hanging out with his robot buddy.
I only want Frank Langella when half his face is missing in the weirdest ongoing CGI sequence of an entire running time of a movie.
Oh, that's that...
The box.
The box, yeah.
And he's great in that movie. It's inexplicable, but it's an odd little... Not highly recommended, even though I quite liked it. It is just a weird tone.
Everyone who only knows Frank Langella as an old man, I will have to remind you, for the millionth time yet again, he was, once upon a time, the sexiest Dracula ever.
He's no Christopher Lee. I'm sorry.
His fingers are considerably less horrifically bent than Christopher Lee's.
How many more films do you have from 2012? A bunch?
Not many.
Okay, great. I have two more, but I can mention them both really quickly. A highlight of 2012, maybe the biggest surprise of the year, was Jack Reacher, the Christopher McQuarrie directed Tom Cruise action film, which I did not expect much from, and yet is the best movie Tom Cruise will ever be in, because it has mood. It goes somewhere. Individual sequences of this movie are beautifully thought out and incredibly well shot and rendered. There is pacing in this movie you do not see in modern filmmaking. It was made with absolute love. Something that their continuing collaboration, McQuarrie and Cruise, now lacks, because McQuarrie has figured out the formula to a Tom Cruise action film, and that formula is not great. But when they were figuring things out in Jack Reacher, and that movie reaches... Oh, that's a terrible thing to say. This film,
I blame Lee Child.
Yeah, this film explores concepts quietly, but it's so engaging. It's such a great little crime thriller, and it has like 10 great performances in it, including Rosamund Pike and Richard Jenkins and David Oyelowo. I can't pronounce his name. I'm the worst. I have it written down somewhere for a different movie. I would go with that, but
And Herzog's in it.
Yeah. Actually, my one-line review of Jack Reacher: any movie where Werner Herzog is the villain immediately gets my money. That's my real review.
And Robert Duvall shows up as well, though, so that's always a bonus.
Yeah. A nearly blind Robert Duvall. The last movie I have to mention from 2012 is a little film called Promised Land, which was directed by Gus Van Sant. It's written by Matt Damon and John Krasinski, and it's just really well written. It's scene after scene after scene of exceptional dialogue.
Well written plus Gus Van Sant does not compute.
I know, he's the...
Because I've given up on him years ago.
His last great line of dialogue was, "You're the man now, dog."
Oh, Jesus. God.
No, he is simply the director. He did not write this movie. He clearly did not influence what the film is very much, because it is nearly an Aaron Sorkin level of intricate dialogue stuff.
Oh, so it's not an intricate level of, say, Jerry.
No.
What a wonderful conversation movie that was.
At any rate, Promised Land is a great film. It made me realize that John Krasinski was an interesting creator in his own right, because he wrote this film with Damon. And it's a really good... This is a really good movie where two actors wrote themselves great parts. I mean, there's no question about this. Mm-hmm. It's very egotistical in that fashion, but it does work. Anyway,
yes, this is what happens when you let actors write. But
no kidding. At any rate, that's Promised Land, Jack Reacher, and all the other films we mentioned. What have you got to wrap up 2012?
I'll mention a very little horror film that you recommended to me that was just a spot of fun, called Would You Rather.
Mm-hmm. I love that movie.
Oh God, I'm trying to remember Herbert West's name.
Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs, of course. I have not seen him in too many horror. He used to be one of those genre stars who was just in everything.
He's still in 20 movies a year.
Oh, really? Okay, because he doesn't ping my radar anywhere near as much as he did.
You got to watch a lot more drivel.
Well, yeah, exactly. Once you get too drivelly, but
it is sort of his highlight of the last decade.
You know, he was in the same career trajectory as Bruce Campbell back in the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that there's no buddy picture with them is sad.
Yeah, God, yeah, that would be wonderful. God, especially if it was a Herbert West versus Ash Williams. God, that would be magnificent.
You have to go to the comic books for that.
I'm sure there is a comic book crossover, isn't there? Yeah. Would you rather? It's a bit of one of those parlor escalating dare type movies with. There's a few of those these days. That and some of them are quite enjoyable. Where it's just let's get together a bunch of people and have the I don't want to use the term torture porn because it's not quite that, but it is this escalating scale of discomfort and how far are you willing to go to survive.
It would make a terrible double feature with an equally awesome similar movie called Cheap Thrills.
Oh, right.
Both of those are similar. And they both go different places. And they're both kind of uncompromising and have fantastic endings, both of them. They build towards a completely satisfying resolution. Both movies, Cheap Thrills and Would You Rather. I do like both. Mm-hmm. But yeah, don't watch them back to back.
A little too much of the same tone.
Yeah. Anything else from 2012?
Yeah, I'll throw in one more, even though I don't think this was underrated, but I just feel like it's worth mentioning because it may be the only worthwhile film Josh Trank ever does, which is Chronicle.
I don't like that movie.
You don't, yeah?
Screw that movie. Screw it so hard. I don't like... Sorry. You start.
No, please. Don't allow me to interrupt your bowel movement on this movie.
I don't like anything where the main character's arc is, I just got the greatest thing ever, but it's made me even less happy to be alive, therefore the rest of this movie is me complaining. It's like, no, this is like a movie where someone becomes a vampire, and they're like, I can't be a vampire, live forever, what am I gonna do? What? This is the first thing you think of when you're given extraordinary power. It's a cycle of abuse.
It is the old adage, with great power comes great whining.
Yeah, there's like 5 minutes of, wow, we got superpowers, this is going to be great, and then it just immediately comes, but what about me? Oh, I cannot watch a full hour of, but what about me? It's like Anakin Skywalker all over again. Sorry, I really, really dislike where that film is.
I'm not a tremendous defender of it, I just felt I should note it. As
it's well directed and well acted,
and the disaster it ultimately led to, which was the Fantastic Four movie that tanked in ways that were legendary, and ultimately got Josh Trank himself fired off the Star Wars trilogy, which was probably ultimately a good career move for him.
Yeah, I guess. But they did go ahead and adapt his Star Wars movie into the Mandalorian TV show. Whatever they tell you,
right?
That's what that is.
Yeah.
At any rate, the one thing I'll say about Chronicle is that it was pitched as Carrie, with 3 dudes who have superpowers, and it kind of is the movie Carrie. It has the same arc. I will eventually go crazy and get revenge on everybody. Everybody in Carrie is everybody at school, whereas everybody in Chronicle is everybody everywhere.
And the scene where those 3 guys are taunted after they get their period, and it's really upsetting.
A rough scene. I mean, anything with Michael B. Jordan and his period, I fully appreciate it. All right, so that wraps up 2012? Or do you have one?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. Let's move forward into 2013. We did it!
2 years in one show? Oh my god.
Maybe. We'll see what happens as we're at the halfway point right now. So, I will begin 2013 by mentioning my most underrated film of 2013. Oh, it's a toss-up, but I'm going to go with the other one first. I'm going to say the most underrated film of 2013 is a little movie called Dom Hemingway.
All right, love it.
Dom Hemingway, here's the one-sentence description of Dom Hemingway. After spending 12 years in prison for keeping his mouth shut, a notorious safecracker is back on the streets of London looking to collect what he's owed. And while that's an excellent description of the movie, it kind of leaves out the fact that he is a massive C-word. I mean, Jude Law is a revelation in this movie, playing the worst person in the world. He fights everyone. It is a non-stop struggle with this guy. If there is a thread, he will pull it. If there is an argument, he will find it. He will go to someone's house to collect money, which they will happily hand him, and he will find a way to fight them as they're handing it to him and make it the worst moment of their lives. This guy is an incredible trash fire.
Yeah. He's a little self-defeating.
Oh, it's amazing. I've never seen a movie do what he does to this movie. Dom Hemingway grabbed my attention the first 30 seconds because it opens with a Shakespeare-level soliloquy dedicated to Dom's penis. And that scene is magical and terrible. And it really just resonated with me as, well, this has definitely got some writing in it. Let's see what happens now.
Yeah, as far as self-sabotaging characters goes, this is the much more amusing, lot more fun, The Wrestler.
Oh yeah, or Midnight Cowboy.
I would place Dom Hemingway and The Wrestler as higher up on the the self-destruction. Why are you such an idiot?
Yeah. The one other thing I like to mention about Dom Hemingway to anyone who hasn't seen it and is considering it, I will first mention that it is a Richard Shepard movie. It is, in my opinion, the high point of his trilogy of Renaissance films that began in 2005 with The Matador, which is a masterpiece. Then he went on to do The Hunting Party, which is another brilliant film. I actually like Dom Hemingway more than those movies. It's definitely, most people are going to prefer The Matador.
Yeah, The Matador narrowly edges it out for me.
But the one thing I like to mention about Dom Hemingway is it loses a lot of people because this movie is not plot-driven. We know the things Dom has to do. We know where the story should be going, but in a lot of cases, he just takes it somewhere else. He'll just wander off and have a side adventure that is just, I feel like getting drunk now, so he'll just derail the movie to go do something else or to scream at somebody. And that does not work for a lot of people. They need event-based, plot-driven stuff. And while this movie ultimately does make perfect sense and everything goes where it needs to go, it will often make the viewer feel like they might be abandoned at any moment, which some films do. They go down a certain road and never come back. This one definitely makes its way back around.
I should also mention Richard E. Grant is in this, who is always magic in everything.
But it was a massive comeback for him. He had not been in anything great in a while, and he is the king of being the weird sidekick. Which he absolutely is in Dom Hemingway.
I will also mention that I was reminded of this film, probably negatively, when I was watching Lucky Day, the Roger Avary film, which is another film about a safecracker. And they both have climactic scenes where the characters must face basically their nemesis safe.
And every safecracking.
Yeah. Well, the nemesis safe scene in Dom Hemingway is absolutely wonderful. And the one in Lucky Day, I did not give a crap.
Well, like everything else in Lucky Day, it's, is this going to go somewhere good?
Oh, no.
No. Again, no, and again, no, and again, no. But no, Dom Hemingway for the cinephile is a wonderful, wonderful ride of weird. But yeah, if you've ever liked Jude Law in anything, this is the best movie he'll ever be in, for Jude Law, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so my second movie is the one that I want you to start talking about. It is the movie I know you watched last night for the first time. It's almost neck and neck with most underrated film of that year. And if
I would have to say it is definitely the most underrated film of the year because everyone hated it.
It's polarizing. There is a small percentage of people who think it's a masterpiece.
I was checking out the Rotten Tomatoes aggregate for it.
It got a 2?
Oh, it's across the board, like critics and viewers alike, or just like I think it was in the 20s. I think it was just awful reviews.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, a worthless garbage website. No one should ever use under
totally
any
agree.
Circumstances.
But it for a quick view of consensus.
I refuse to look at it. I refuse to acknowledge it. I would appreciate it if you never mentioned it on the show again. It doesn't exist.
Just because it's completely corrupt and subject to all sorts of manipulation.
Gee, that sounds like a wonderful tool. So tell me your thoughts on your fresh viewing of The Counselor.
The Counselor,
It
yes.
took me months to come to a true opinion of
the most hated film of Ridley Scott's career.
Yep.
By far. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think people hate on Prometheus, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen the reviews of The Counselor. Mm-hmm. Based on a Cormac McCarthy screenplay. Not one of his books.
Original screenplay.
Yeah, an original screenplay, not one of his books, but very much in his tone. To the point where a lot of people were saying, well, just because you're a good novelist doesn't mean you're good at screenwriting, because this sucks. I was like...
a massive misunderstanding.
Apparently you've never read one of his books, because this feels like it fits right in.
It's identical.
Yeah.
It is his universe. It's the...
Now, the key, though, is you told me, correctly I'm sure, to watch the extended cut of the film.
Yeah. 138-minute director's cut version as opposed to the...
Yeah, it's an extra 20 minutes of stuff.
20 minutes shorter,
Yeah. A willingness to go more extreme, both with moments of violence and with the depth of conversation, because this film is ultimately a series of conversations between people involved directly or peripherally in a planned crime.
Yeah,
I didn't even know it was a crime film going in, by the way. I thought it was a straight drama.
Yeah.
And I was prepared to be a little bit bored.
Yeah,
and as soon as I realized, it's a crime film, I was right in there.
Again, it's as much like I mentioned with Dom Hemingway. It opens with like a soliloquy, which is sort of a man talking about his woman's parts.
Yep.
But I forgot to do the one-line synopsis. A lawyer finds himself in over his head when he gets involved in a drug trafficking operation. Boy, is that not the movie. But it is the movie.
Yeah.
It just doesn't do justice to
I
the experience of sitting through this movie.
I will concede that I understand some people's criticism of it, because if you have a number of scenes, and this isn't all the conversations, but it's some of the conversations that delve into almost philosophical territory.
Very much so.
That a lot of people will, if you're not engaged with the film, you will find that stuff pretentious.
It is pretentious. It fully leans into pretension. But
I'm content with it, though.
It's a pitch black crime film. How do you not love this movie?
Boy, does it not pull any punches.
But I will certainly agree that many of the plot points in this film require thought and reflection in order to understand what people are actually saying. Why is this scene in the movie? Why does he go on for so long about a dance club that he visited once? It's just these long segments. And
I mean, there's a very long scene with Bruno Ganz involving buying a diamond.
Yep.
They go about into nitty gritty about diamond imperfections and what this is and what that is. More so than I've ever seen in any other film involving diamonds, even peripherally.
But this movie, while almost an art film, delves so far into violence and sexuality.
There's also talk. There's scenes where characters talk about sex to a degree that's more frank and graphic than just about any other mainstream Hollywood film I've ever seen.
Yeah. And as I wrote about it in a short review, it is an ode to nihilism. Because, oh boy, do things go bad, and do people ever live in the darkness in certain parts of this. Here is the best thing I could say about this movie, which will be completely incomprehensible to anyone who hasn't seen both of these movies, but what an absolutely poetic double feature with Seven. Oh, you have no idea what I'm saying. The end of both movies has something very similar.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. We won't get more specific than that, but fair enough.
Yeah. Again, The Counselor is like maybe the most polarizing movie ever that I love this much. And,
I have to say I'm a little bit baffled at the degree of hatred for this.
Well, remember, everyone saw The Shortcut.
Yeah,
movies.
It almost made me curious to go. I actually went on Netflix after I watched the long cut to see if the shortcut was still up, because I wanted to rewatch a couple of scenes to see how badly edited down they were, but unfortunately it had already been removed from the site. So
I understand. Well, gee, it wasn't.
But there is a particular bit of violence in it that is so extreme. I quite loved it,
and it is cut down.
And I understand it. I want to see how badly cut down it was, because it's the sort of thing that's like, this isn't effective unless you get to see the full horror of it.
There are so many movies where things have been cut down and they just don't make sense anymore. Although the one rare example is the movie RoboCop, where in an early scene in the movie, they're demonstrating the Ed 209s on an executive gopher, and they say, "Oh, hold a gun against him, and he'll respond." And he does. He says, "Now drop the gun," and the robot doesn't recognize he's dropped the gun. And
proceeds
fire.
to, riddle him with bullets.
It is horrifying to an extreme I couldn't even believe on a first viewing, and it still is, but it's a cut-down version of the director's original intentions, which was that the robot was going to keep firing in a way so long...
Until he was a puddle.
Until it became comical.
Yeah.
But now it's brief and 10 times more horrifying. So MPAA basically forced this cut on it and reversed the effect of the scene. It's no longer humorous.
Well, that's something that the MPAA has at least realized in subsequent years, that when you do extreme violence in a genre picture, like a horror film or something, you might as well go full bore with it. Because it actually gets to the point where it's comical rather than horrifying.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to have to move on from The Counselor, even though I could do a whole hour on it. I will mention my next favorite movie of 2013 is Stoker. Which is a little bit hard to describe as well. It's
it is.
a Chan-wook film.
Park Chan-wook, I would say it is his version of Alfred Hitchcock's Shadow of a Doubt.
I mean, that's my last thing I'd say about it is it's a Hitchcockian film. It stars Mia Wasikowska, Matthew Good, and Nicole Kidman. And Nicole Kidman is weird in this movie. Here's the synopsis.
Name a film she's not weird in.
Here's the synopsis, but it is a very hard movie to describe properly. After a young woman's father dies, Uncle Charlie comes to live with her and her unstable mother. She comes to suspect this mysterious, charming man has ulterior motives and becomes increasingly infatuated with him. The fact that a young woman becomes infatuated with her own uncle is the heart of this movie, and how strange that gets as it goes on. And her arc is phenomenal.
Yep,
Where
yep.
she starts, what we think she's going to do, who she becomes, that's the movie for me. But aside from that, I will say...
Yeah, there is a pivotal revelation moment where her reaction to something is 180 degrees off from where you think it is, and the way it's revealed is, I will just say effective.
The thing I'll say about Stoker is I recall my first viewing of it was 45 minutes of this movie is beautiful and I have no idea where it's going and I don't think I'm going to like it, followed by a couple of scenes that revealed where it was going and me realizing the first 45 minutes were absolutely perfect as a setup to get to where the film needed to be. So ultimately I think it's a great movie, but I remember not having confidence in it when it started, and that's on me because it's a great, great film. And, as you said, very Hitchcockian.
Yeah, Park Chan-wook can barely do any wrong in my book. But, it's one of those, this is your first English language film. Often that doesn't work out so well. With,
no, it's a mini masterpiece.
Yeah.
So do you have something you can relate to us from 2013 in about a minute?
Yeah,
in about a minute.
In a minute, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Have you got
I will just throw out, for the hell of it, John Dies at the End as a fun genre film that I can talk about in less than a minute. Very comical horror. I don't know what. What's it?
I mean, it's pure science fiction.
Yeah. Well, with horror elements, but
I don't remember anything horror-like in that film.
Oh, really?
Even though I'm sure you're right.
Yeah. Strange fun. Is it Don Coscarelli? Yeah.
It doesn't seem like one of his films, though.
It's true. It's a bit of its own thing. Well, it's based on I would call it a series of books, although as far as I know, there's only two of them so far.
I think there are three now, but it's based on the first one, which was an internet serialized book written in chunks over a couple of years. That was somewhat of a phenomenon.
Right.
But I liked the book. I did not like the movie. I didn't like the casting, other than Paul Giamatti. I didn't like the tone. It rushed through things I thought were clearly going to be short, clean sequences. And I don't know, even the full ending, because I knew the full ending going in, it seemed so staged to me. It didn't breathe, but that's my baggage. I read the novel.
Yeah, that's usually the case with if you've read the book first, it's your understanding of the pacing of the film is skewed.
All right, well, we'll be back in a moment with a few more thoughts on the best, most underrated movies of 2013. I mean, I want to love that movie, and I don't even like it. It's one of those. It's like, oh man, this has all the elements.
Well, apparently no one liked it enough to continue making the books. So.
No, they just put out a third book.
No, I know, but I mean into
as
movies.
Films?
Into
yeah,
movies.
I knew that would be the case. Even if this movie was, the movie John Dies at the End should be 40 minutes longer, and everything that's in it needs to be paced out better.
Well, I would say it would probably be better as like a streaming show.
Yeah, for sure. Six 45-minute episodes would have been great. It touches on all the main points of the book without really living in the moments as much as I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is, Don Coscarelli, not a great filmmaker. He's okay. He's competent, but he's made like 8 films and 2 are good. It's not a great track record. Alright, we are back from me crapping on the career of Don Coscarelli off mic, even though I really like him. I do like him.
Good recovery.
I know, I feel bad now. But it's very true that he has a. I like Phantasm 2. I'm okay.
Phantasm 2 is wonderful.
I'm okay with the first Phantasm. Is that it? I think that's it.
His other Phantasm films are acceptable.
I'm no Beastmaster fan. I do not like those other Phantasm movies. I think they're horrid. They're an example of, we had $99. Yeah, and you didn't even make a good $99 movie. So whatever. There's an entire movie that's made out of outtakes from the first Phantasm and a new sequence of a zombie cop walking around a car for what felt like 2 hours.
I appreciate that they kept that thing going for decades.
It's just not great. It never.
But you know, it just cannot ever match the highlight that is Part 2.
Oh, Part 2 is
with a completely different lead.
It's practically Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
It's the same special effects man as Evil Dead 2.
It's up there with that same sort of energy and humor. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to my last big movie that I like from 2013. It's a very short review anyway. It's a movie that no one's ever heard of called Hours, Hours, Hours. It is written and directed by Eric Heiserer, who went on to become very famous for writing Arrival recently, the Jeremy Renner and Amy... I don't have her last name. I've got so many Amy's.
Yes. It'll come to me after the show is over.
I'm a monster because she is the star of that movie.
Yeah. And she's also a big star, who we should know.
She's Lois Lane. We all remember her as Lois Lane.
Yeah, the best Lois Lane, right?
At any rate, Hours. Here's the premise of Hours. I had to write this for an article recently, and it was a hard movie to get into a paragraph because every single version of the explanation of this left key elements out or went on forever to get them in. This is my truncated version of it. Just as Hurricane Katrina hits New Orleans, a young father fights to keep his prematurely born daughter alive, with the hospital he's in abandoned and the electricity that is out. The power for her neonatal incubator must come from a generator which is damaged and must be cranked every 3 minutes. And as if things weren't bad enough, the situation worsens when marauders invade the hospital. This is the only movie I think Paul Walker's good in. Don't get me wrong, I like one other movie he's in. I don't think he's good in it, though.
Right. The element, I know what you're talking about, Running Scared, of course.
Correct.
And, the elements that are good in that film don't have anything to do with him.
No. In Hours, he spends the majority of the movie standing by his dying daughter's incubator, hand cranking a generator over and over and over. This movie is excruciating to watch and incredibly satisfying. It's one of those films where you're just like, this is just a torture test for me as a viewer, but I am fully involved. And it gets worse when bad things start to happen. He's already in the worst imaginable situation, and it's just like, oh, well, now we're going to throw in people trying to kill you just because.
Amy Adams.
Thank you.
There you go.
I felt like such a bastard. At any rate, that is a really, really effective, tiny movie. It's essentially a one-location film with Paul Walker just screaming at the universe, why is this happening? But I really love that movie. Do you have something else from 2013 to pitch?
Yeah, no, I have a few.
I've got 3 more.
Yeah. Big one for me is Blue Ruin.
Oh, I forgot that was 2013. It's the birth of, what's his name?
Jeremy Saulnier.
Yeah, it's the birth of the Jeremy Saulnier career.
/ Macon Blair.
Yep.
One of the greatest revenge films I've ever seen because it is the sort of revenge film that asks you, what if you, meaning you personally, as a regular average person, wanted to get revenge on a bunch of people? Mm-hmm. And
I do.
Yeah, but watching Macon Blair, who has no skill set for that sort of thing, enact his revenge. Usually it's like, oh, and then Mel Gibson wants to get revenge, and he kicks everyone's ass. This is not that film. It is. Well,
to be fair, Macon Blair is no Mel Gibson. And in a lot of ways, that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. I'm a tremendous fan of Macon Blair now, so. And Saulnier. This is sort of their genesis. They, of course, went on to do Green Room, which is even more spectacularly horrific.
I will just break in and say, if you do not know who this person is and you are considering delving, start with Green Room. Green Room is the movie you start with because I actually don't like Blue Ruin. And I watched it multiple times now, searching to see what other people see in it, and I loved Green Room. Green Room is not on my list of most underrated because people love it. It's a big movie. You're not going to see it show up on my list. It's super well known.
They did another film before this called Murder Party, but Blue Ruin is really, I would say...
Murder Party is garbage.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Blue Ruin is really where their career starts.
It's a nearly unwatchable amateur film. It's right on the line. But Blue Ruin's a real movie. It is incredibly well made, but I don't connect with it. And I tried twice. I'd say it's good, but Green Room is magic. There's something different. And by the way, I know many people who would think Blue Room's better.
Yeah,
so you're not alone.
Yeah,
it didn't connect with me.
I'm a bit on the line between them. I can't really decide which one I prefer.
I think that's a great place to be. These are not bad films. I personally am not a fan, but I do have Green Room to fall back on as a movie that just upset me in that good way of I can't get it out of my head. It stayed with me for a really long time. Any other thoughts on Blue Run?
No. I want to mention it because there's a bunch more that.
You got 6 minutes.
6 minutes. Okay. Well.
I got 3 more as well, but I guess I got
quick shout out to Only Lovers Left Alive. Probably the last Jarmusch film. Most people will give a crap about.
I also think that movie is bad, but it is the Citizen Kane of Jarmusch movies compared to what is it? The Dead.
The Dead Don't Die.
Yeah. If I don't make these, but if I had a worst of the decade list, that has got to be in the top 5. The Dead Don't Die. Only Lovers Left Alive is beautiful. It's got the best imaginable cast, and it is super boring. I just wish I liked it. I don't like it. But you were not bored by that movie?
No, I quite enjoy that. Although, mind you, anything with Tilda Swinton is going to bump up my appreciation of it. Yeah. Her and Tom Hiddleston as a couple of vampires hanging out in Detroit. It's a good night out at the cinema for me.
I think it's you said it right, hanging out, and they do. They just
hang out, what can I say? It's a Jarmusch film. It's going to be lackadaisical hanging out type stuff.
Yeah. All right, go on.
Another one that we appreciated and no one else on Earth did. The best movie of its ilk we'll ever get about this character, The Lone Ranger.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to bring that up.
Yeah, well, considering how despised it was, that's another massive.
I don't try
epic
to defend
flaw.
that one for people who don't want to like it.
It's
like Speed Racer. I don't like Speed Racer, but there are people who love that movie. You don't need to defend it. If you love it, just go ahead and love it and don't talk about it.
Well, I will only mention it for those who heard nothing but bad about it and dismissed it completely, saying, it's a messy film, but the bones of it are good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a weird and interesting heroic movie. I think it's the best Gore Verbinski movie not called Mouse Hunt.
and it has ultimately sealed the fate for the Lone Ranger as a character in popular culture at this point. I don't think anyone's going to attempt to resurrect him yet again.
Another decade. They're talking about making another Green Hornet movie, and let me tell you, the Green Hornet movie with Seth Rogen is far, far worse than the Lone Ranger movie.
Yeah, so I guess you can never underestimate how out of ideas Hollywood is.
Anything else?
This was also the year of another one that I watched last night to catch up for the show, which was Stretch.
Oh, Stretch.
Do you have a different year for it?
Because 2013.
Okay,
that's my impression. I was going to talk about it in 2014.
Okay, fair enough. We can hold it. But
yeah, I believe so.
But yeah, there's always a bit of a disagreement when it comes to a lot of release dates for films because it premiered at a movie festival and then
I go with whatever IMDb says, but I may have miswritten it down. In which case, we'll still talk about it next time, but I'll double check what I take it you're going off the IMDb date.
Probably, yeah.
We probably also need a couple extra minutes for that one than we have today.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'll quickly mention one I know you agree with me on. 2 of them, in fact, I know you agree with me on. Sweetwater.
Yes.
Is that on your list?
Yes, it is.
The January Jones starring Jason Isaac scenery-chewing maniac that he is in that film, and the calm, demented Ed Harris performance make for one of the 3 weirdest westerns I've ever seen, but it is a beautiful, nasty, compelling movie.
Yeah, a weird western, however, well informed by Once Upon a Time in the West. Even the title refers to an element of that film.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Sweetwater is the name of the town that they're building the train station for.
It is a mini masterpiece. It is the strangest little film. You have to be okay with watching westerns, which a lot of people are not for some reason, and you have to be okay with odd but deeply satisfying by the end. I still desperately want to do a Weird Western episode of this show. This would be highlighted. We can talk more about it at that point because we don't have time today. We're 2 minutes away from being done. I also want to mention Bad Words.
Oh, Bad Words was that year? Oh, yeah. Oh, I love Bad Words.
Not Robards.
Bateman.
Yeah, thank you. The Jason Bateman directed movie about a 40-year-old middle school dropout who uses a loophole in the rules to compete in the largest spelling bee in the USA against children. And it is so dark.
This is possibly my favorite film of that year.
It may be my favorite film of that year. I still think it is, what do you call it, underrated. It does not get mentioned as a great
largely
movie.
ignored, frankly.
Yeah, it is such a satisfying movie to watch a man be a bastard for 2 hours,
especially to children.
Towards children. And it is so funny and so angry, and it is an early Catherine Hahn performance, and that woman has broken out as being... You know, we did a Best Actress Working These Days thing, and I think she's up there for me now.
She's fantastic in this.
After seeing her in, of all things, Into the Spider-Verse, playing
yes.
Doc Ock.
Yes.
And more recently, she has a TV show whose title escapes me. It's the name of the Mrs. Fletcher, which is also, she's absolutely amazing on that show. I really, really want her to make 50 independent movies, like in the next 5 years. Just tiny little things she stars in. At any rate, and finally, Bad Words, huge recommendation. Everyone should see it. Brilliant movie. The last movie I want to mention is We're the Millers, which is a comedy about a family doing a crazy thing. It is so much better than any movie of its kind. It has so much good structure in the writing and payoffs for the moments. An absolutely brilliant film. Anything else for you? We got 60 seconds and we're really done.
No, let's wind down slowly for a change
right.
instead of trying to rush through our last... let's mention 10 more movies in 3 seconds.
I'm Michael Brody. I've been joined by Shane Simmons. I run a trivia show in Montreal on Sunday nights at a place called Grumpy's and on Monday nights at a place called Four Origins. My show is called The Best Damn Trivia in Montreal. If you want to attend, Google The Best Damn Trivia in Montreal. There's ads all over the place. Shane, what do you want to promote?
I have a new collection of short crime stories called Petty Crimes and Vindictive Criminals available on Amazon right now for Kindle and in paperback.
It's not a bad book, and I should know I helped edit it, or at least copy edit. However you want to credit it. I like the bigger credit, but I guess I'm probably down to, you found the commas, shut up. At any rate, we're out of here for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week with part 3 of the most underrated films of all time. Well, the last decade. I'll just blow it on the last word. I really loved most of what you said today and how we responded and back and forth.
Yeah, Bad Words is another one I had as 2014. It's one of those...
Again,
different sources can't agree what years came out.
I really just go by the IMDb list, which is why for 2018, I'll be mentioning Freaks. Mm-hmm. Not 2019, which by all rights, it came out in late 2019.
Right.
But it's on the list. You know, it's
all it has to do is play at one film festival somewhere. And
the same with I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore.
Right.
It came out.
It was at Sundance, and then Netflix.
Year
it was at Sundance. Netflix bought it, and then it came out on Netflix, and everyone knows it from Netflix.
That's another one that's on my list, but I will acknowledge, like right off the top, as much as I think this is a great movie, it got a lot of attention. It just still didn't get enough. Mm-hmm. So that's like, what were we talking about Green Room? Like, I'm not going to talk about Green Room. It had massive attention. Like, it is appreciated. It's the ones, you know, I prefer to get to the stuff where you're like, you know, people don't know about The Counselor. They don't know about...
Right. Or if they do, they only know the terrible reviews.